What's up, guys? I'm going to be going through some photography Reddit posts, some questions, some Am I the Assholes? So let's just hang out and have some fun. Am I the asshole for refusing to be the photographer for my sister's wedding? I'm a professional photographer, and previously my sister had asked me to photograph her engagement shots. Of course, it's a privilege to photograph these special moments for my sister and my future brother-in-law. However, she's now asking me to be the photographer for the upcoming wedding. Once again, it's an honor to be asked, but I declined and said I'd rather attend as a guest and actually enjoy the day instead of viewing it through a camera. She didn't take it too well and has caused a massive drama over it. I've had family and friends texting me asking why I won't do it, and my parents insist that I should because it's not about me. I feel like it was perfectly reasonable to decline, but after so many people disagreeing with me, I'm not sure anymore. I do not think you're the asshole. When you start working professionally as a photographer, there are some blurry lines when it comes to friends and family because they see you as like, oh, this is a person that can document something and I can save money, especially for weddings, because wedding photography is expensive, and it should be because it's something that should be valued and is a ton of work. So when people think like, oh, maybe I could just like save money and just have family or friends do it for me, it puts us as the professional photographers in an awkward position or situation. Even if you were an amateur photographer, I think it's a situation where you, the photographer, if you want to build your portfolio, you would have to be the one to offer, hey, I want to shoot your wedding for my portfolio. Can I do that? And then also have maybe like, this is if you want to do this, okay? I'm not saying that you should. But if you were to give that as a gift, like, hey, I want to be the photographer for your wedding to build my portfolio, I'll do it for free. Definitely have boundaries and say, hey, I'm going to photograph this, this, and this. And then at this point, I'm going to have fun and party. Because the moment that you pick up the camera, you're not a guest anymore. You're not there to have fun. You're there to work. And if it's something that you want to take seriously and you want to build your portfolio, I think, I don't know, it just kind of sucks the fun out of it. Not always. Sometimes it could be fun. It could be something where you feel more in the moment, and more power to you if you feel that. But personally, I'd like to have that boundary with my friends and my family that I will definitely be there to shoot engagement photos, things that don't require a bunch of other people celebrating, and then just being present for them the day of, and then hiring a great photographer so that you can have those memories, and so that the person that's the photographer in the family can also have beautiful photos of them as well, because most of the time as photographers we don't get pictures of us because we're always taking pictures of other people. So yeah, I do not think you're the asshole, and I think your sister needs a reality check, and she might be in the wedding planning bridezilla mode, which it happens because it's stressful and you're spending a lot of money. But hopefully after she awakens from this, that she'll realize that, you know, what she was doing was wrong, and your family needs to really stop. And maybe your family should offer to pay for the photographer instead of having you do it. So yeah, that's my opinion on that. Up next, what questions to ask your photographer? I'm starting to interview wedding photographers, and I'm looking for suggestions on what to ask them to make sure that we cover everything. We're not interested in an engagement session, nor are we interested in video. Any tips are greatly appreciated. This is great. I think that if you are planning your wedding or an event or whatever you're needing a photographer for, especially for events, since it is a huge cost, and you want to make sure it's an event that only happens once, and you want to make sure that it's photographed correctly, I would say the questions that you should ask your photographer should be specific to what your event needs. If you have an event where the venue is indoor with, you know, low lighting, you could ask your photographer, can I see some work of an event that you did in a venue that's similar to mine? And hopefully they have something like that. Hopefully your photographer can work in a dark location, you know, either using off-camera flash. That's one question that I would say that you should definitely ask. Another question I would ask is what is important to them when they're photographing events or photographing a wedding. Like, what do they prioritize? Do they prioritize more traditional shots? Do they prioritize telling the story? What's their style? With photographers, I feel like there's always like a niche that people want to be, or like a little box that they're going to be put into, like, oh, you're only a documentary photographer, you're only an editorial photographer. And I think that a well-rounded photographer, a photographer that knows their craft, that knows how to deal with different lighting situations, different styles in general. So I think a well-rounded photographer can give you a little bit of everything. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not good at photography. Maybe some people are like, my gallery needs to look the same from beginning to end. And yes, that's great. And I think that that's wonderful, and that definitely has its place. But if you're a person that wants that really loves like a documentary feel, but then also want to be posed in certain ways. There are definitely photographers that are well-rounded in different aspects in photography. And I guess just depending on what your budget is or what's more important to you, that's really what's going to dictate your choice in photographer. For the event day specifically, I think you should also ask, typically they'll have it in their packages if they have a second shooter or not, but I highly, highly, highly recommend that if the photographer doesn't have that in writing somewhere, to ask if they use a second photographer, especially for weddings, because you typically are working with two different people. And so one person could be with the bride, another with the groom, or vice versa, or two brides or two grooms, whatever it is. I think that you need two photographers. If you're not going to be spending any money on video, definitely splurge a little bit extra for that second photographer. I think just asking overall for what their experience is and some examples of their work so that you can see what they can deliver, not just what you see on their Instagram, because it's easy to choose the best work for Instagram, but seeing an entire gallery from beginning to end is definitely the best way in a situation that's going to be similar to yours. So not seeing like an outdoor venue when your venue is an indoor venue with low light and vice versa. So hopefully that helps. What were some things that you wish that you knew before getting into photography? Hey guys, I'm a total newbie and I have an old Canon EOS M5 laying around that I've never truly got the hang of. I want to start posting better pictures. Here's the question. When y'all started off, did you just focus on having fun and taking as many pictures as possible, or did you study up on the technical side first? Thanks. I wish I could say that I was such a technical photographer and I really studied the art of photography. I was not. I was very much all vibes and just zero technique. So that has been something that I've had to develop as a photographer, especially going into the more professional realm of everything. I need to know my shit. I recommend going off vibes first, like figuring out, what do you like taking pictures of? Don't feel like, oh, if I'm a photographer, I have to be a wedding photographer or I have to take pictures of kids. Like, what really makes your heart sing? And do you want to make it a profession? If you don't want to make it a profession, take pictures of whatever you like, and once you figure out what you like, I guess then you can start looking at the things more technically. Honestly, learning both at the same time, there's nothing wrong with that either. Like having fun, but then also setting some time apart to figure out like, why is ISO important and what is the shutter speed and all the technical things that your specific camera has, what lenses to use, how to edit eventually. These are things that I think that you can do hand in hand at the same time. So it's not just mutually exclusive. You don't just start taking pictures and then not learn. But also you do learn by taking pictures, because you'll take a picture and you have this idea of how you want it in your head. This is especially like when I was beginning, this happened a ton. I would have this idea of a picture in my mind and I was like, this is going to look like the cover of Vogue. And then I take the picture and I was like, why does it look like shit? Because I didn't know what I was doing. I wasn't using the right lens. The composition wasn't right. I wasn't using off-camera flash. There's a myriad of things that I was not doing. So eventually you look at those pictures and you think, well, why didn't it look the way that I wanted it to look? And I think that that's when you start building on your techniques. You have access to so much education for free because of YouTube now. When I was starting off photography, it wasn't that long ago, but YouTube was super brand new. There was no photography teachers and I was buying books and taking darkroom classes in high school. So I think that the access that we have now is so much greater. The access to incredible photographers is so much easier too. And you have conferences and you have all these different options when it comes to how to grow your photography. So the sky's the limit. And I think you are only limited to what you're willing to do. So if you're willing to put in a lot of work, you can get really, really good really fast. So I wish you the best. What is the number one thing that you have learned as a photographer? Whether as a professional or for a hobby, what is the best thing that you learn in order to become better? Light and shadow. Because I used to ignore shadows and I only wanted light and everything was overexposed and really bright and just not even I wasn't respecting my shadows as I was my light. So I think being more aware of shadows and understanding why we want shadows and growing and not being afraid of shadows or darkness in your pictures, I think that has helped me a ton. Just paying attention to light and shadow in general when you're out and about without a camera, just you existing, going out into the world. I think paying attention to the light and the shadow and colors and how they mix and just having the eye of a photographer has helped a ton. But that's something that I learned for free. So it's not like I had to invest a bunch of money into it. It's just practicing with it. And it was learning how to respect my light and my shadow. And I think that was the most important thing that I learned in photography. Should a beginner start with the DSLR before going mirrorless? I think that you should start with whatever you can afford. If it's just your phone, then it's just your phone. If it's a point and shoot camera, it's a point and shoot camera. If it's film, if it's digital, if it's a crop sensor, mirrorless, if you have endless money and you want to get the top of the line stuff, and then you take a picture and you wonder why it looks like shit, it's because you don't know what you're doing. And it won't matter if you have it on a mirrorless camera, and it won't matter if you have it on a point and shoot camera. Ultimately, I think you just have to learn with what you can afford. And I mean, obviously, if you can make it less expensive so that you're not feeling, I don't know, overwhelmed by the cost of it, then I think that that's the best option. But I would start with what you can afford. And if you can afford a mirrorless, then great. It's easier to kind of visually see how every mechanical thing that you're changing affects the image because you could see it live on a screen. But I think it's also important when you're learning on a DSLR how the settings that you choose affect the image that you see on once you review your work. And I mean, even more in rewind, if you're going film, you don't know what the picture is going to look like until you develop it. So either way, I think it's important to know your stuff, learn at least the basics when it comes to lighting and when it comes to what your camera settings mean, and just start shooting. How feasible is it for me to be my own model? I love photography and editing and I want to work with it somehow, but I basically only enjoy photographing myself. Is there a way for me to potentially work as my own model? I'll turn 18 in a few days, so I'm not worried that my parents will kick me out if I don't get a job that pays at least $1 a month. LOL. That's so cute. Absolutely. You can definitely do your own photography with you being your own model. It is a genre of photography, which is a self-portrait. And this is achieved with a tripod so that your camera could be propped up with something. And you can use either the timer tool in your camera, or there are also little remotes that you can buy to photograph yourself. So it's a remote that triggers the shutter. So yeah, you can definitely do it. I think it is a lot harder because you're not seeing through the lens and you just kind of have to imagine what it'll look like. It's very trial and error. It's going to take a lot more takes to get the perfect shot, but it's definitely possible. I know of photographers that just do self-portraits and they do an amazing job. They do things in studio, they do things outdoor. So definitely find photographers that do this and specialize in self-portraits and get inspired, do something cool, do something different. And those are the two things I think that you would definitely need, is that tripod and either a remote or just the learning how to use the timer tool and running so that you can get there before the timer goes off. Anyway, that's it. I hope this was fun. This was a great time just reading some random Reddit things, some random Reddit threads. Let me know if there's a Reddit thread on photography that you like to look at so that I can read some more fun questions about photography. And I hope you enjoyed hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.